is everyone? Get in here. It's class time. Do you know enough history to be able to keep up with the arguments that everyone is having right now about nations and nationalism and what makes a nation and where are the nations come from and how do we define a nation and are they in the Bible and such? I am beside myself. I'm supposed to be writing something about, the Middle Ages and spiritual life and prayer and things like that. And I'm dragged back in over and over and over again by arguments about history of things that people should have learned in college. If they study with me, that is, of course. So I figure as a public service, yes, all right. I'll teach you a little history tonight. Welcome to the Mosaic Ark. Oh, well, good. Here, you're here for class. This is good.
Present.
And we have a number of people in the chat already. Great. We'll, sort of wait for everyone to file in. No, we won't. We're going to get started because class started. And where has everyone been?
Where's everyone glued to the television?
Well, yeah, no, I know the sort of living history thing that we're doing where you just like every 10 minutes is a new event on the calendar. Ooh.
Yeah. I never know what I'm going to see when I pull up Twitter or X, as it's called now, or any online news source I've been looking at. It's just I don't know what to say. I'm actually at a rare loss for words.
Well, this feeling of everything's living on the skin of the moment. And indeed, when we are arguing over, I don't know, let's see, what happened today? The tariffs, right?
Oh, yeah.
I'd say
that's
Canada
right.
wouldn't have to be paying tariffs if they just like joined the country, right? We say, oh, Canada is that Trump tweeted, right? That's a very pretty image. If we just had the entire, well, we didn't include Mexico yet, right? Just include the entire North American continent in our country. Makes it simple, right?
I feel like starting a conspiracy theory.
Okay. Actually, those are the conspiracy theories based on what Kennedy was saying in his hearings this week, right? It's like if they're almost like magic spells. If you say one, eventually they become true.
Yeah, I just looked at the United States of North America. What would you call it? First map. And I thought, wow, that for some reason it looks much more British than American.
Well, but I mean, it could. I mean, if we included Canada, we could still just call it the United States of America. It's still America. It's still United States. No name change necessary.
Yeah, it could be all a clever plot for Britain to get all of its colonies back, and this is step one. You just unite Canada and America.
Who's actually driving? Okay, so the conspiracy theories. It's like my head is spinning from reading Substack articles which,
Little bit,
are,
yeah.
well, they're ranging from, doom spiraling and laughing at us. There was some guy, hi YouTube. There was some guy that came to our YouTube video last week and said, lol, you're so deceived or something like that. And it's like, you ladies, I dropped it into the newsletter and noted it, right? Because like this in real time history stuff means you just get folded into the narrative, right? If you show up and say
Yeah.
something on our video, we're going to include you in the video. And the history is all happening right now, and it all accordion collapses into the eternal present of the internet, so that there is no such thing as, I don't know, but as I ranted at the beginning of this episode, there's a lot of debate right now going on about what is a nation. I mean,
Oh, it's an idea, right? It's just an idea.
well, actually, yeah, that's all they are. I mean, they are ideas.
Not people. It's not geography. It's not blood. It's not history, tradition, language, religion. It's just an idea.
Okay, well, the problem here is, and we were playing with Grok a little bit, right, to help us generate some images and stuff. People think of ideas as things that simply float out there in the world.
Yes, the eternal present, like the internet.
Right, the eternal present, like the internet, but it's an idea, which means it exists independent of human beings. I mean, this
sounds like it.
This is the nominalist problem, right? Of like whether or not the ideas exist out there in reality, independent of those of us who are thinking the ideas.
Yeah.
So, and that actually, I was joking a little bit there, but that actually is the problem. That at one level, what people are arguing about is whether the idea of the United States of America exists independently of any of the people who hold that idea, right? That there's a substance, there's a substantial reality to United States of America that is absolutely, completely independent of anybody thinking it.
Independent of anybody thinking it.
This is Plato versus Aristotle, you realize?
I don't, because I did not study them.
Okay.
Sorry.
So we are now embarking on what clearly must be an extended series. It may be a bit leapfrogged by other topics depending on what happens over the next few months, but if we want to quote recover the Western tradition, we're going to have to do a lot of reading, right? And that there's no, again, I'm just so sick of it. I do this for a living. I teach history. I have been doing it for now some 30 some years, which means in lived experience terms, I've read a lot of books. Mm-hmm. Like a lot of books. Like even people who put lists of how many books they've read up online, Vox, I'm up there with these guys reading lots of books, which I can tell you when I say you guys don't know anything, you don't know anything. You just
No, she is a walking index, just so all you people watching know. You want to know what to read, ask her.
We've had and on our Dragon Common Room website, we have put up many reading lists and links to my syllabi and yet more links. And yes, there's lots and lots.
Keep that in mind if you look at it.
And the thing about reading lots of books is, I mean, for the most part, okay, so they're not. Do they train you in life? That's a tricky question. What they do contain a lot of is stories, and what history is lots and lots and lots and lots. And lots 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 of stories, from the individual called the biography to, the local is like, urban history, right? You might write a history of your town or of your, big city, to community, nations, right? Nations, in one instance, they exist as subject of history, right? And you're going to write a story of this entity, which we call a nation. History also includes, like all of the relationships between all of these different entities, from the individuals up to the collectives that we then talk about. And if you really want to understand how complicated this all is, it helps you to have read a lot of those. Because you can't really do it just conceptually. History is a very empirical field. It means you have to have a lot of examples of real stuff.
Right. And once you have all of that knowledge, Well, you can't have all of it, but
No.
a good chunk of it. One might ask, what do you do with it once you have that?
Well, interesting. So it indeed, spoiler alert behind the scenes, like one of the things we're doing is making the images for parts of Act 3 in Draco Alchemicus, and one of the like climax scenes is drawing on the end of the image, the enclosing image from Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skulls, whatever that was
Right.
called. What was it called?
The Crystal Skull.
Something like
Yeah.
that. The Kingdom of the Crystal
Kingdom of the
Skulls,
Crystal
right?
Skull.
And the Soviet what is she supposed to be? Kate Blanchett.
Well,
The
Kate
Soviet
Blanchett.
Galadriel. How's that? The Soviet Galadriel.
No, because she's evil. She's Galadriel who actually took the ring, or wants to.
Who wants to, and they find the crystal skulls and find out that they're, crystal skeletons of these entities that are sitting on the thrones that have all of the knowledge of the internet, right? I do think it was a brilliant movie in more ways than maybe I appreciated even the first time I saw it. But
I do not think it was as bad as everybody else thought it was.
yeah,
I thought it was just okay.
There's some good entities in it, and one of it is this desire to be filled. She says, "I want to know, right? I want to know everything, right? And to be filled with all this knowledge." And
well, she was an intelligence officer, so of course.
So we want to have the all of the webs and the connections, and this is what you do as a historian. At least it's certainly what I do as a historian. You're constantly trying to figure out what's related to how many of the stories, bind them together, tie them up, make them into stories. And insofar as we say a nation is an idea, well, one of the things a nation is something you can tell a story about.
Well, you can tell a story about anything, though. Can you elaborate, maybe?
Well, okay. So you said that we're stuck with this sense that a nation is an idea.
I don't believe that, by the way. I was thinking about sarcastic.
No, I know you were, but that's where people are starting, right?
He's been running around telling everybody it's just an idea.
What does he mean by that?
What does he mean by that? Do
we think Vivek knows any history?
I think
I'm going to be nothing but internally snarky in this episode. No, I cannot stand what's going on right now.
He knows history. He doesn't understand it. All he does is spit back out facts that he's heard from teachers and books. And lots of people are very good like that. They're almost like they have eidetic memories. But somebody with an eidetic memory is not necessarily somebody who understands all the information they've taken into their brain. Okay,
fair.
He's spitting it all back out. And I think he says, well, I'm not saying that. I'm going to paraphrase. Anybody who's watched him knows that. Well, he didn't say it exactly like that. I'm going to paraphrase. Okay. He said, I'm not saying that it's not, a nation isn't, it's people and geography, but, and then here comes the flim flam, and he does talk fast like a car salesman. Okay.
Yes, he does talk. I should try to slow down. When I get excited, I start talking too fast too.
It's a different vibe. It's I'm going to convince you of something that is not necessarily ethical vibe, right? That's the vibe I get off of it. It's like
rather than me who is trying to be, Kate Blanchett filled with all the light and tell you everything all at once.
You're excited about something. I'm excited about something I've learned. Let me share it with you versus I'm excited and I think America is this, and I'm going to tell you that, and I'm not going to change my mind, but here I'm going to talk really fast and be really excited. I'm going to use my hands a lot. So it sounds like I'm trying to sell you something, because I am trying to sell you something. I'm trying to sell you this idea that America is just an idea. Yeah, the fact that it is a bunch of ideas is more important, this is basically what he said, than a collection of people with a common history and blood. That's what I took out of his talk.
But what ideas? And this is no truly
Maybe
this
elaborated. I didn't watch.
Yeah, I haven't either. But this is a problem, right? Because I think what the first thing we have to distinguish is what kind of idea a nation is, because what he's doing is the usual move, which the internet calls civnat, or maybe some parts of the internet calls civnattery.
I'll call it bait and switch, but yes,
bait and switch, right? Yeah. But the civic nationalism idea. Right. Mm-hmm. That and this is, I think, it's an idea in an Enlightenment sense that the ideas of as abstract ideals exist independent of the people holding them, like liberty or reason or
Yeah. Yeah, there's no doubt the founders were Enlightenment types. They were very well read
yeah.
at the time. They did have ideas they wanted to act on, but the reason they were able to cobble together these seemingly disparate colonies was because they had a common ancestor, they had a common background, they had a common cultural ancestor, a common Western European Christian ancestry. So they drew upon that, and they eventually did let the Catholics in through Charles Carroll, who was the wealthiest colonist in all of the 13 colonies, who basically bankrolled the American Revolution, at least the start of it. But they found that they had to let the Catholics in. But even though, I mean, George Washington wasn't anti-Catholic, John Adams definitely was at the beginning. He softened up somewhat after his experiences with Charles Carroll, but they had to keep letting people in, like the Germans and other people who weren't English. But it did definitely start as an English Protestant thing, and they had that in common, and they drew on that. And so even though it started with ideas, the only reason they were able to agree on these ideas is because they already had a common cultural heritage. They knew how to talk to each other, even when they didn't agree.
Okay, and I'm going to have to unpack all of that too.
This is all my opinion about what I know of American history.
Okay, no, but so this is no. So this is actually fair. So on the one hand, we get this argument that, you know, anybody can. I mean, this is what Vivek is trying to suggest is anybody can have these American ideas, right? It's like it doesn't matter. I mean, he is, because of the H-1B debate, right, and everything, and immigration, which is obviously immigration is behind all of this. So if anybody can come from anywhere in the world and hold these ideas and behave, no, forget behavior, just stop that I said that. The pure version of all of this, which is kind of in the O Canada map that we're looking at right now, is this kind of distilled heraldry of, yes, absolutely anybody can come into this space. Okay, even then they're not. I rather think they think they're going to have America on Mars, right? It's like, imagine that, right? It doesn't matter.
I don't, but that's the topic.
Right? Okay, whether we think that we're ever going to get to Mars or the moon or anything like that, but in this version of the premise, we have these ideas such as, and then does Vivek ever say what they are, right? It's like the claim that we have these ideas that we all live by. It's not only independent of the things that you're trying to say, of the history and the communities and stuff like that, but it's independent of Earth, right? And to a certain extent, when I hear them talking in those terms, you start feeling it's independent of being human, right? It's just like these ideas simply exist, and we, you know, in our whatever we are, you know, try to platonically participate in them or something like that. We might be, you know, guinea pigs or daisies or.
Okay, I think people have
AI, right? AI could be CivNat, right? Which is why do we even robots could be American?
Well, they're trying to say the American experiment. Okay, I don't remember who coined that term. I really don't. I don't like it. I'm not an experiment. I'm an American, right?
Right. I will get you to the end. Stay with me, everybody. Yeah. We will get to the point where this actually has a concrete definition. It may take a little while.
Okay.
Yes, because we have to unpack all of the nonsense that we've been fed, which is part of our mythology, which is, I mean, the civic nationalism things is saying, you know, like you become a part of America by being trained in, and the less silly version of it is
by being trained in 18th century English Enlightenment. Enlightenment.
No, but see, that's okay. One, none of those claims that you're saying right now have content, right? They're more labels, right? Okay. Enlightenment, Protestant, English, all of those are still floating labels.
Well, I don't think they're floating labels.
No, they are in our conversation.
Okay.
I'm being scholastic right now. I'm right
Okay.
now in my
They're real things.
in
I
my
told you.
day in my day job. I'm trying to write about Bonaventure's understanding of the Virgin Mary, and I realized what's interesting about Bonaventure. He's a 13th century Franciscan. He's now my like lifelong hero. I would, if I got confirmed now, I might take no. I took Mary as my confirmation saint. Anyway, he starts in his writing life as a student in Paris as a scholastic theologian, and in order to get his doctorate, he has to write commentary on the sentences, which are the scholastic question and answer, very logical stuff, right? But what he ends up doing and what he does in his teaching for the Franciscans as minister general, when he's in charge of the entire order, is meditations on scripture. And what I've realized in writing about him is his meditations on scripture are absolutely as logically paced as his scholastic questions and answers, but they and I one of the few people that have read him in quite these terms, because I read everything. I've tried to read all of the other medieval stuff that I've been reading in these terms. You have to go through all the steps, otherwise you miss what he's trying to show. And what modern readers tend to do is like miss all the steps of the scripture that he's citing, which is very interesting. Okay. So what we're trying to do here is in demonstrative terms, something like a mathematical proof, but it's going to be in a story form. Ready?
Okay.
Right. And the thing is, I realize I've been doing.
He's trying to reel me in.
I've been
here.
doing this all along, right? It's like there are steps that you have to go through to get to the QED. And even if it looks like what we're doing is, riffing off of all of these poetic images, which is what Bonaventure does in his sermons, there's a concreteness, which is what the Franciscans are great at, to the claim that you're making. And I want to do that with this idea of nation to get us to the point where we see that it is actually something that needs to exist but I mean, it exists in reality, but not in the form that the Enlightenment abstractions tend to make everybody think it should.
Okay, the only reason I brought that up is because I was talking about that as their ideas and their ideals when they started the country. They shared a lot of those ideas and ideals. So that was an idea that started the nation, but the nation couldn't have started at all if they didn't have a concrete, blood, religious, and cultural connection that they shared, because they did. That doesn't mean people can't be grafted onto it. They can, but it's definitely a physical thing.
Okay, right, and that
they can.
Okay, that is the argument that we did a little bit of research for this. And we're aware that not only Vivek is making arguments that float, right? The problem I have for all this stuff is it just floats out there, right? The civic nationalism. If we all just live according to this government, we're going to wave copies of the Constitution around and it'll magically take, right? Mm-hmm. And that does tend to be the way people do it. It's like here, I mean. Yes, you should know what the Constitution says, but carry pocket copies of the Constitution. It's like, it's literally just the structure of the government. There's almost no philosophy expressed in the Constitution itself, right? It's mainly in the preamble. And if you know Schoolhouse Rock, you can sing it, right? Shall we do that? We the people, in order to form a more perfect union. But establish justice. I have to sing it to know. Ensure the blessings of establish justice. Ensure the blessings of provide for the common defense. Promote the general welfare and secure the blessings of liberty for ourselves and our posterity. Do ordain and establish this Constitution of the United States of America. That's it. Right? That's literally all the philosophy you get. You want to sing it again? So it's and the labeling in that, the posterity, do ordain and establish for this Constitution. I'm gonna have to sing it again. Let's see. We the people. I can't do it without singing it, and I can't sing it because I don't remember the tune. Are you gonna sing it with me? We the people, in order to. Maybe it's not really very tunefully written. In order to perform a more... Okay, I'm gonna look it up.
And you'll get it.
Oh, yeah. Okay, look, I'll do it on my phone because I've got my iPad open so that I can see if anybody leaves any comments for me after. You can preamble. You can, right.
I always forget it after general welfare.
I remembered the whole thing.
Sing it
Here
up
it
to my
is.
head up to that
Okay.
point.
Okay. We the people of the United States. Okay. Claim there is such a thing as the people of the United States. Here they are. We the people of the United States. In order to form a more perfect union.
Listen to what that implies. We're already unified. We want to form a more perfect union.
More perfect. Bonaventure talks a lot about perfection. And the sermon that I've been writing about is talking about the Candlemas, the purification, right? So this perfection, right? Okay, so we're gonna aim for utopia here, but more perfect, not actually getting there, not the perfect union, simply more perfect. Establish justice. Okay, so that's an earthly claim, but maybe there's a claim that justice actually exists out there. Ensure domestic tranquility, like that we don't fight each other. Provide for the common defense. So we're not providing to be a military industrial complex. We're simply providing for the defense of,
correct.
Right. Promote the general welfare. That's how the New Deal got in.
Yeah.
And secure the blessings of liberty. Blessings of liberty. I mean, that's moderately vague.
It is, because they didn't define it.
Right. To ourselves and our posterity. Okay, so not just those of us who are live right now, but the posterity. Like, does that, and Vox, you guys on Unauthorized, no, Vox has regularly argued that claim, our posterity, doesn't include anybody except the direct descendants.
But that makes the direct descendants of who? He said, we the people, those representatives who went there to the convention.
People that were there now, I guess. Yes,
right.
Who's the people?
Right.
Aha, very 18th century question. It's like, which people?
Yeah.
Which people are we going to count?
But there were a lot of people there.
There were a few million. There weren't that many.
No, I meant different types, is what I meant. Yeah.
Okay, so it does like they did go through a process of ratification, so I think it has to count as the people who ratified it through the states.
Right, but they were there as representatives of all the people in their states.
Okay, so it's of these United States, right? So you could add states. There's nothing wrong with Trump suggesting we could add Canada. We've been adding states all along.
Oh, there's so much wrong with that, but it's got nothing to do.
Only because of the people who live there and how they would vote, right? But
well, yeah, not just that. I mean,
but then how have we added new state? How is Hawaii a state?
Hawaii is a state. Supposedly, over 90% of the people voted to join, but can we audit that vote? Because there's so many people that don't want to be part of the United States there. I just don't know enough of the history of the American settlement and the Japanese settlement of that island to know whether or not there were enough Hawaiians actually voting for it, or if they were just overwhelmed.
Or Alaska, or New Mexico, or so the thing is, we've been adding these United States are just the ones that were there signing at the time, but somehow we've added more since then. Can we?
I don't know if it's
okay. So at this point, I did not anticipate going. No, I did not anticipate going here. But of course, it's a rule set that is trying to answer all of these questions, right? It's like,
you would say it's legal precedent doing it because they did do it. They did it fairly early on.
But okay, so the reason people go around waving this document at you, and it's short, like it's 6,000 words. It's an article. My article on Bonaventure is already longer than the Constitution. It's not very long.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't 6,000 words? Okay. Do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. Okay. I'm going to look up how many words are in the Constitution.
Are you going to include? Are you going to include all of the amendments?
No, I just words in the Constitution. It's fewer than I thought. 4,440 words. That's not even an academic article, right? That's in the
original. Yeah.
That's a talk, right? 3,000 words is a 20-minute talk. 4,400 words, maybe 35, 40-minute talk.
It didn't take much to establish a government.
And it's just a rule set for answering these kinds of questions of how all of these states are going to operate together, right? Why would how are the states going to establish this more perfect union, ensure the blessings of liberty, blah, 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 right? And
Mhm.
in so that, if Vivek is talking about that and everybody's talking about, like, saying, who can belong to this entity that is governed by this particular 4,379 words?
Well, the ideas are never going to be more than the people because the law was written for the people and not the other way around. So
Right, but
I think
the
it's
claim is that I mean, that's, again, they go around holding this document. It's like Jehovah's Witnesses coming at you with pamphlets, right?
yeah, yeah.
And that they're very Protestant, right? It's one of Terry Pratchett's characters is, Mindley Oates, and his full name is something like, and distribute pamphlets to them all, right? Right. So you're gonna have this pamphlet that tells you how the federal government organizes itself,
Mhm.
with in consultation with the
Right,
representatives of these other entities, the states.
right.
So is that an idea? Okay, and again, I'm trying to make you flip your sense of, okay, but they had to be these people, right? The claim continually is, if you come and live under this 4,379 words, you are American.
Well, I don't know that that's true. It doesn't. It's not magic.
But that's
I mean, it's
that's
it's a
why
set of
it's
rules you have to
frustrating the
live
way
by.
the
Yeah,
Civ Nats talk about it. Say, well, we live
yeah.
according to these ideas. And it's like, what is, okay?
No,
So any club that,
like
it's like a
it's the same.
club. If you're,
Yeah, I'm just as American as you are.
because I came to this
I
club, and of course,
I just became a citizen yesterday. I'm just as American as you are. It's like,
right,
no,
right,
you're just as much an American citizen as I am. But as
okay.
far as being an American, that's something different. That's something that only comes through time and
Is
experience.
it right? And that
Yes.
that is okay. I didn't. We were doing good cop, bad cop on this. I didn't realize we were going to do that, but that it is that this is the crux of the debate, right? Can you
Yeah.
join the club? And the thing is, as what is President Trump's press secretary called? What is her name? Winters?
Oh, is it Levitt? I think it was. I thought it was
Levitt.
Levitt.
Levitt. No,
Yeah.
Winters is the other one that Milo's been talking about.
Yeah.
Levitt, right? Okay, so people who come into the and again, I'm really trying not to beg the question of, like, how you do this, but people who come into the thing that is somehow governed by everybody waving this particular 4,379 words at them, and don't do the stuff that the 4,379 words plus say they need to in order to be part of this club, don't belong, right? That's illegal. That there is a law about belonging to this entity, but as long as you do it legally, you're an American.
Citizen. There's got to be a difference.
Okay, but
There's got to be a difference.
well, then that's what Vox is talking
I
about, the
live with it. I'm married
posterity
to it.
question, right? It's like, how much is
Yeah,
this
yeah.
a genealogical for we ordain ourselves for this in our posterity, so it can't apply just magically to anybody who's not related to us.
That does imply that. Yeah, that does imply that you have to marry in, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, and then even where the question is, like, whether you marry in, right? Are J.D. Vance's children fully American? Since
I would say yes.
their mother was she an immigrant, or her parents were immigrants? How
I
many
think
layers
I'm
of
not
marrying in
sure.
do you have to have before you count?
No, I mean, she married in. Her children are American. She's not. She's an American citizen. I'm married to an American citizen who's not an American, right? He immigrated here. Actually, I asked him to become a citizen because I didn't want to have to deal with our
Oh,
government.
you're married to no, and my
Yeah.
husband is here as a permanent resident, right? He has
Yeah.
not become a citizen.
And
So
he didn't actually.
we're part of the problem, except for yours is from
The funny-
Ireland and mine's from England. So are we part of the problem?
Actually, mine's from Northern Ireland, so he has potentially 3 passports, just so you know. So
Well, he and I could be
British, Irish-
related, since my family, back in the day before there was the United States of America, came from Northern Ireland. That's where the Fultons came from when they were from Ulster. Before there was the United States of America.
except I married a Catholic Ulsterman, so
Okay, wait a minute. We have lost the steps that I wanted us to get
Lost
through.
the plot here.
Well,
No, so,
we've
you
lost.
know,
So we're trying to do the
yeah,
mathematical Bonaventurian proof of association of images, and
mhm.
what I'm trying, what my professorial purpose here is to demonstrate the difficulty of the definition, which is why everyone's getting tangled up in stupid internet fights. Stupid in
I
the
think people are,
stupid
I-
internet fights in the sense that they end up coming down on one definition or other and then yelling at each other.
well, it's the dismissiveness, I think, that is causing the strife. You just dismiss people who are actually, Americans from way back, from the very beginning. A lot of us, and had a lot of branches marry in, and you and I are both the products of that, because we're not all 100% English, right? Got a
Right.
lot of, in my case, a lot of Irish and German, but to have somebody who as they used to say, just got off the boat, say, I'm just as American as you. You need to give up the silly idea of, Americans being this and that, and bring more of my people. And what do you mean? I thought you were American anyway. Because it's just nothing more than an idea. Well, that's dismissive and insulting as hell. Really, it is.
There's nothing in the preamble that says nation. It doesn't call it a nation.
It says people.
It says union.
And it says people.
That's not
right?
nation.
Isn't it? Isn't a group of people a nation?
Okay, so what I want to get you guys to, and Casey dragging her along with me as my guinea pig, is why we talk in terms of nations in the first place. And the problem here is, okay, look, the preamble to the United States, the Constitution for the United States of America does not say it. The preamble does not say nation. Now I'm going to have to worry about whether the Constitution itself says it anywhere. It says union for the people.
The people of the United States of America.
That's not nation. That's the United States of America.
Oh, I would argue it's implied.
I wouldn't.
It's an implied nation.
I wouldn't.
Because it's a geographical area, and it's all the people in that geographical area, and all the people in that geographical area got together, had a convention, and agreed on something, and a nation was born.
Nope. A union was born.
Well, that settles it.
No, a union was born, but they didn't call it they called it the United States. What if instead of the term state, they'd said nations? What if it was the people of the United Nations?
Ew.
Which in 18th century terms would have been an appropriate synonym.
Well, then why didn't they use it? Because they were
no, because because in their mind state was the political entity, but we have this term nation state. What's that?
A nation state?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. What is it?
Okay, so in the 18th century, when they're writing these kinds of things, they're having debates, for example, in France, afterwards, right? And I was thinking about this. One of the things I do when we do this problem in your history of European civilization is we read a very famous another pamphlet. I wonder how long that one is. That was written by the Abbé Sieyès. It was called "What Was the Third Estate?" And he's defining what makes the French nation, which is interesting because he basically defines the nobility and the clergy out of it, saying the third estate is all of the workers, right? So there is actually, the French Revolution confuses absolutely everything yet again, but he's talking about the nation as the productive groups, the productive participation in the people. A state. They call it the United States because they are political entities, right? These entities with their own constitutions, and we're going to make a union for them. I do not think the preamble to the Constitution of the United States establishes a nation.
well, it's only a preamble, but is the entire Constitution establishes
No,
a government, but it
it
establishes a
establishes a
government for
government. It's yes, it
the
is. No,
people.
it establishes a government for a people. It says people.
Yes. Yeah, but they don't, when they say people, they don't mean individuals. They're talking about a group of individual
That's true.
peoples
That
that
is
came
true.
together.
That's true. It's a people. So now we have the reality that maybe there's a difference between the state, which is the government, and the people who have a government, and therefore what is a people. The nation isn't the state, it's the people.
Correct.
But that's okay. So that's fair. That's fair. So we're not United Nations, although we did end up with this entity called the United Nations, which is kind of modeled on the United States.
That's why I said ew.
Right. So why didn't they say and if what if we said we the nation of the United States in order to form a more perfect union?
Well, I think it's in order to form a more perfect union. As I said before, this is implied that we're already unified and we want to perfect it.
Hmm.
And then therefore they created a government to do that. But they already considered themselves American.
What's American?
What's American? To the founders who made the document, or to me?
Where's the word come from? Not Amerigo Vespucci.
Oh, where's the word?
Who were the Americans?
Does it?
Who were the Americans?
The Americans were the original Americans, the colonists from the former British colonies
Nope.
of America, the 13.
Nope.
No?
No.
What is it?
They thought they were English until they wrote all these documents. They
No.
yeah.
Maybe
Who are the Americans?
No.
The United States of America.
American.
Now, the America is the place, right? Who are the Americans in the earliest documents?
I'm going to take a wild guess and say they were called the Americans by the British.
Nope.
That's where the name came from.
Who are the Americans?
Well, I've taken my best guess.
The Indians. They're the actual natives.
But they weren't called that.
Yes, they were.
They were called by their tribal names.
No, they're indigenous. They are the Americans, and yeah, they have different tribal names and such like that. But the actual, if you in the early texts of the 16th, 17th, 18th, you're talking about the Americans. You're talking about the natives. So like and therefore the region is America, right? But the original Americans were the people who were living here before the colonists showed up.
They didn't call themselves Americans, though. That's not what they called themselves.
Well, that doesn't matter. It's that they got called that by the English who settled among them.
Okay.
So why are there groups that call themselves Americans now? Like the true Americans, not hyphenated, right? No hyphenated Americans. No New Englanders or Virginians. Who calls themselves Americans?
I do.
Trump voters, right? But
Am I?
And who voted? I mean,
this
from the very beginning, who voted for Trump? The red states. Where are the red states?
In the South.
What part of the South?
What part of the South?
Your Ulster-born, husband would know if you were true Scots Irish who married all the Cherokee, right? They've gone native, right? They've literally gone native. So the Scots Irish Appalachian borderers in North Carolina who are all like taking care of themselves and very happy the government finally helped them, right? But the reason that they call themselves American is because they had married themselves in, and they sort of then they go native, right? Calling yourself an American originally among the English colonists was basically becoming a backwoodsman and marrying into the native population.
But I think they continue to call themselves Scotch Irish Cherokee. They still do.
In asked on census forms what kind of Americans they are, they'll just say American. They won't remember, right? I mean, we are now suddenly, somewhat thanks to Trump, actually more aware of ourselves as Scots-Irish. But for a long time, they just blended, right? And I mean, the blending is particularly strong in the Appalachian region.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like,
Okay.
like it's a crazy amount of people who have that in their background.
Yeah, because
In
they're
fact,
the biggest.
in fact, half of my family does.
They're the biggest immigrant
too.
group, which was not
Yeah.
which was not where I was going to start. We were going to start. That's getting us to Albion Seed and where I was going to go,
Yeah,
right?
you're
But
ahead.
okay, so maybe we'll say that's where we need to go to understand why, you know, there are regional differences in the United States. But the opening problem is when we're talking. Okay, so I'll make it. I'll say it more bluntly and then do say. When we're talking about nations in the way that you are, it's claiming that we're a people and we're a geography and we're customs and we're all of these things, we're talking in 19th century terms.
Fair enough.
But the thing is, do you actually need to appreciate why the 19th century comes up with those terms? The 18th century is worrying about these states and forming governments, and they're very philosophical and worrying about laws and things like that. This entity of the people as a nation and its distinction from somebody else is a very peculiar 19th century problem. And therefore, interestingly, when you say a nation is an idea, guess what? They're all invented in the 19th century. Shall I show you how?
Yes, please.
Right? We got it. Okay, Sonny Ackerman said, y'all are cute. We're all blended now, aren't we? Literally everybody in the Western Hemisphere are Americans. Well, yes, but there's precision. We're going to get to precision because I'm just trying to like destabilize
Precision blending.
poor Casey, right? She volunteered to be my guinea pig by being my co-host, right? Okay, so let's do this. All right, so I'm gonna have to do this as a lecture because peeling it out is going to be painful and cruel and an unusual punishment, which I should not use. Okay, so Trump has proposed this idea of Canada belonging to the United States, which in fact, in the terms of our Constitution and the fact that we've admitted new states must be there. I realize I can't remember how. Somebody can tell me in the chat. So that, you know, there is nothing stopping the United States of America in these terms expanding to include all of them. We could get, you know, the South part too. Take South America, we could Panama and Ecuador and everybody else, right? So, but that's a governmental claim, right? That we can exist as states with their own independent governments, Illinois, Texas, right, like that, under this one federal government, and it is entirely possible to add more. There's no limit set. It's like we're not like bound to be only 50 of them. It's you know, it's nice and the flags are nicely arranged and stuff like that.
No,
but there's zero reason. I think if we bring Canada in, we should like bring it in separate states, but then that might give them more voting. I don't know how we'd bring them in. Anyway,
I'd like to see how
whether
you
Alberta and Quebec will
that.
agree, right? It's like, will we get Alberta because they seem to like us, and maybe Toronto. Toronto might want to join if they would go with New York because then they get all the film industry again. And okay,
No, I don't confuse Toronto with Ontario. Ontario maybe, Toronto never. It'd be like California saying they would love to join Alabama. That's just, I think that's probably the way they
yes,
look.
yes, exactly. So, but in fact, literally constitutionally, there's no reason we couldn't absorb more states.
No.
Right. Okay. So that's fine. Okay. So
no, in fact, the question comes up for Puerto Rico every like 5 or 10 years.
right. I mean, and whether it's appropriate to bring more states in. But the thing is, by the Constitution, that's actually okay because the reason that they were multiple different states is they all hated each other. We'll get to that. Okay. Yes, they really did. Okay. So
this is why they were looking for domestic tranquility, by the way. They didn't want a repeat of the English Civil War, which they got anyway.
Yes. Yes. Now you're getting it, right? They needed domestic tranquility because the Articles of Confederation had failed to achieve that. And two, the Constitution nearly didn't work, right? It had to have a war over it called the Civil War, right? Yes, exactly. They need domestic tranquility because they need to figure out some way to operate together without falling into war again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, well, maybe I should go back to Canada again. Okay, and likewise, I mean, it's interesting because we have, okay, you've been saying some various things like English and Protestant and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Why? Why say it? It's like look at what happened to the British Empire. Like we left, bye. And the British Empire gets, this is a map showing, the empire at its height with,
Yeah.
Britannia sitting on her allegorical animals, I think. She's
Mhm.
sitting on the world, right? And here's the British
Yeah.
Empire with, trade routes and stuff. And Canada is part of that. And then with England, and we have, Australia and India and South Africa, something like that. Yeah, it's pink. Okay. So you'd think that if you're saying that we're English, well, why don't we belong to this? The British Empire. Why
Because
why shouldn't we belong? It's like, why should we be separate from the people who in fact we are? If a nation is the people identified as all of the people with this similar something, magic something. Wait, is India
well,
part of Britain? Well, a lot of it is
I think they
now.
just wanted. I think they just wanted to be left the hell alone.
Okay, but fine. But the opening move is always, well, we're in ourselves and our posterity. So, okay, crudely, guys, we're trying to argue against the white nationalism claim. All right, duh, right?
Mhm.
It's dumb, and I'm going to prove it. I hope at some level, so that I can stop having to think that, okay, I can point to this video and say, look, you guys are nitwits. If in fact we're identified simply by our blood relationship, why weren't we part of the British Empire?
Well, they were until they declared their
But how?
independence.
If we're
They did
if we exist as a nation, we're bound together forever by our
right
blood.
because their cultures diverged enough that they could actually get together and declare their unification in declaring independence from their origins from Britain.
But some would say, I mean, I'm going to do class on Anglo-Saxon England again. It's like we need to learn Anglo-Saxon history and, medieval history. That would be great. And early modern history, like Elizabethans, and we have Renaissance fairs and everything, right? Because in fact, we're still English. So did we diverge in culture? We didn't diverge in language, these to the extent that we can still read each other's stuff.
Well, it's real interesting what's happening in England right now, and specifically, I'm looking at what's happening in the Anglican Church, and as it completely dissolves, and its country is dissolving around it. Now, we rejected a state religion, and we're still nominally Christian, a little more than nominally Christian in this country. This
Ah, that's another thing to bring into the mix.
Yeah.
There
So
you go.
it would seem counterintuitive. You get rid of the state religion and then religion dies, right? But no, it didn't. It flourished here because it was the Constitution said, leave it alone, just leave people alone. And just like I said, leave me the hell alone. We could have just shortened the Declaration of Independence to that. In Britain, they didn't do that. They went the other way. They went more authoritarian, and then they spread themselves out very thin, and then they tried to absorb. They tried to be British and
are the English as the Americans?
are the English as the I can't answer that question because what does English mean?
Oh,
Right?
right. So look,
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
know what it means. I know what it means in 1776. I don't
they're
know what
all
it
English in
means today.
1776. When they write the Declaration of
No.
Independence, they write it as Englishmen, and the rights of their as Englishmen, they want to declare themselves. It's like
Okay,
they're being the barons of
was
Magna Carta all over again, saying, "King, you've misbehaved."
that is what prompted them to get enough support to do it. But the
So
reason they were
their
in it,
rebellion was in fact English.
they're okay, yes, but why did they how did they get people to agree to it?
Because they were
And
all
I've heard
English. They all agreed to be, because they'd all come
American.
over. No, they were English. And the English
They were American.
back in 1649 had chopped the head of their king off. So they were considering, just like, we've done it before, why not now?
Well, they didn't want anything to do with the king. They just didn't want to acknowledge him.
They
weren't trying
they
to cut
kept
his
the
head off.
language.
That was for the French to do, right?
Okay, so I mean, we're crippled already, and we haven't even gotten past the first slide, right? We're on the second slide. There is, this claim of unity when clearly politically it doesn't magically stick everybody together, even in our own history. Anglophone.
No, it did.
Right?
It didn't. I think there was what is the percentage thrown out? 13% of the colonists supported this. supported splitting from England.
Right. And some of them ran away and became Canadians.
And some of them ran away and became Barbadians, I think. Some of
Yeah.
them,
Yeah.
some ran to the Caribbean.
So, but the thing
Once
is,
again,
so if
none of
we're
them went to
actually
Mexico.
related to,
It's just like today when all the celebrities say, "I'm going to move to Canada."
right, they
Nobody went to
did.
Mexico.
They did. So they
Except
move
the
on to
Irish
Canada.
in
So we must be
the
related to
19th
people in
century.
Canada, right? So they should be ours because we're blood relations. But we have blood relations in England, and we're not. Okay, so one, guys, just recognize that instantaneously these definitions become much more complicated than you think. Okay, for example, how about American? Well, here my next slide is showing you what the colonies actually looked like in 1762, and most of it's Canada.
Yeah.
I mean, this is what's funny. It's like in our heads, we get the better bit of the colonies, but it's more of a half and half territorial split after our War of Independence, right? And the Canadians carry on being part of, under the crown, and we don't. But there's also this sense of like the people often think of the states, like, because we have all these badges and fridge magnets and and puzzles and stuff, and you know what the shape of the state is. It's like it's all really fixed, right? The states were like these fixed. No, Virginia just figured it went all the way west. Didn't even know how far.
Yes,
right.
That's right.
And the Carolinas are the same. Georgia, Florida's kind of squished in there. But this sort of fixity, even of our sense of the entities, the United States, they don't have clear borders yet in 1762. A good deal of the history of the United States is surveying.
Yeah. 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 That was like when we did Washington, D.C. That was funny surveyor.
Right. Right. So
yeah,
it's kind of fuzzy. And even in 1762, this is only 14 years before we're, establishing the entity of the United States of America with a constitution and everything. And like most people looking at this map would just see blotches in Canada.
Blotches in Canada, right? You're not used to looking at the lines on the maps. True. Yeah.
Well, they're not used to looking at the fact that the sort of sense of where the territory is even quite. It's like you're given school maps in school. It's like, here's the 13 original colonies. It's like, yeah, well, here they are in 1762, and they're kind of fuzzy.
Yeah. Right.
Right. So it's like, where exactly does this United States pertain? Not long before, it was all blue, right? Before there was Canada, there was Louisiana.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the French really lost out.
And they had a lot of Canada. That's why Quebec has its French part, right?
They had a lot of Canada. They had a lot of what is now the United States.
Well, and what I found interesting about this map, this particular map, is how much of it is I have to look at my map. Okay, so we've got, let's see, Fort Detroit, Fort de Pont-Neuf, Fort St. Joseph, Fort Miami, Fort Owen-Tinon, Fort des Chartres, Fort Mesiac, Fort l'Assomption. Oh, wow, that's down in Tennessee. Fort St. Francis, Fort l'Arkansas. Oh, 1686. No wonder Arkansas is called that. Fort Ladue, Fort Rosal, Fort Saint Jean Baptiste, Fort Saint Louis. Oh, okay, that's where I was born, probably. Look at all these forts that the French had established, and they are here in force. Trappers and traders and missionaries and mapping and everything from the Bay de Hudson. You made a joke about we should call it Trump Bay, down to the Gulf du Mexique on the Océan Atlantique.
So silly. Oh God,
but
no, seriously.
I mean, come on. We claim it now. It's like it's ours, right? And it's like, oh no, the French, they don't belong here. They're somewhere else.
I did not have Trump wanting to refight the War of 1812 over again with Canada.
Well, maybe, okay, never mind fighting the War of 1812. How about this map, which is it's a lot of yellow, which includes all of the other places that I grew up. Oh, Spanish Louisiana from 1764 to 1803. So the Spanish was in charge of a lot of Louisiana because after the French and Indian War, they got it, but then they lost it to Napoleon, who then sold it to Jefferson.
Yes.
Manifest destiny.
That wasn't Jefferson, I don't think.
No, but the
Okay,
feeling that we have of like it's ours and we belong here, and it's the sense of Americans, we know we are, and we fill in this map with this particular configuration. But wait a minute, Spanish Louisiana is all of this region west of the Mississippi. The internal
Mhm.
provinces include, again, places where I've lived a long time, New Mexico, which was the north part. It's a province of Mexico, and they're hoping for like more treasures like in Mexico. So Nuevo Mexico, the Viceroyalty of New Spain from 1521 to 1821. Gosh, 300 years. We're not even 300 years old yet as a constitution.
Yeah, I know.
San Francisco.
The place names are the only ways that these get remembered. And occasionally
Oh, but there are
you'll
people
have
still there. Come on, there's lots of people still
yes,
there. There's a lot of people in
yeah,
New Mexico whose families were there from 15
yeah,
say
but nobody ever talks to them.
I do.
Right?
We go
Well,
to
when
see
you
it. Look,
okay,
look, look. My
you're
Wonder Woman outfit, right? Okay, one.
Wonder
These
Woman. Oh, yeah,
this one is
classic.
actually Anglo artist. This one's Navajo artist, right? When the Spanish go up there into New Mexico around the Rio Grande, the part that goes up through New Mexico, and they settle in Santa Fe and little farms and stuff around that, and they have to fight, different groups of the natives, Pueblo,
Hmm.
because they live in little towns, the Comanche, who they make a treaty with, and the Apache, whom they don't make a treaty with, but they get the Comanche to make a treaty with them to fight the Apache. Right? Those families still live there now
Yeah, they do,
in New
but not
Mexico.
everybody knows them. I just saw this picture on today. I learned or something. So the New Mexico license plates have to say New Mexico, USA, so because people get getting it confused.
Well, it's only been a state since 1912, right? My grandmother
Yeah,
was
it's not
born
a
in
long time.
1912. This is within, when I was born, it was, as new as Alaska and Hawaii.
I tend to think people have this view of time lapses as just they're so used to things being instantaneous that 100 years seems like more like 1,000 years ago. And it's not. There are people who are over 100 years old alive today, and they're coherent, and they'll talk to you, and they'll tell you about, I remember when New Mexico became a state.
See?
Right?
See?
But
Right? And so
you have to
just
seek them
the
out.
overlaying of, look, the colonies were amorphous to a certain extent. I mean, with the coastline, it makes them look fixed, right? But to the interior, they didn't know what they were, who would control which parts of the territory. The French are in conversation with the natives for hundreds of years. Some of those conversations may have contributed to the way the French thought about the Enlightenment. Another story. The Spanish are in the western part, and a good deal of our border debates, right, are across a region that was one entity before certain wars in the 19th century. And
Mhm.
and and then what's interesting, that you can add in, this is the map of the European migration in
Oh,
1858, right?
mm,
Giant green part of coming from the British Isles into
yeah.
Canada, and also going all the way around down to the bottom, down to Australia, right? And this is one of these graphics that shows you number, like fatness of lines is numbers, right? So it's
Hmm.
it's it's statistical. But this pink bit, this giant pink bit, which is as big in the 19th century as the green bit going into the United States, is coming from, oh, look, Germany.
Oh, yeah.
And
Hmm.
what's interesting about the Germans is they don't have those kinds of colonial presences, or colony. They don't have those kinds of imperial presences as the English and the French and the Spanish do.
Hmm.
But in terms of people and numbers of people, they went everywhere. There's an interesting good bit of pink that goes down to Brazil. But we also have from France the blue bit. There's a purple bit going from Portugal down to Brazil. Large black bit going from Africa, both west, but more towards the east, which is interesting.
Hmm. Hmm.
And anyway, this
Yeah, what was going on
migration.
in Germany that caused so many of them to leave? I mean, they were
Oh my!
actively
I'm
they were it
so
was
happy you asked. Right, what's going on in Germany that so many Germans, in the giant, massive migration in the mid 19th century? largely to what was by then the United States, largely settle in, the Midwest, right? The Midwest is very, very German region. Nobody knows that now. It's there in the architecture. It's there in all the German towns, like in Columbus and Louisville. And, everyone always knows about Fredericksburg down in Texas, but they don't recognize that, guess what? All of this architecture that we're surrounded by, a lot of Chicago's built by Poles that come here after, I think they come more around 1900, so they come a generation or two later. But these enormous German populations come over. Half my family is from that, right, on both sides, right? So the Scots-Irish marry them too. Scots-Irish will marry anybody.
They'll marry anybody. True.
We're very big on kin, and we'll just marry everybody. That's what J.D. Vance is, right? He's from that Appalachian group. Sure, I'll marry, what's her name? Usha. And we'll have great kids, and I'll go visit, our family plot. That's part of our family. Scots-Irish are good at that. We're really good at intermarriage.
Yeah.
We are.
Yeah, usually the Scotch-Irish married into the American Indians, and so
did that. Yep.
This is an Eastern Indian, but yeah.
Scots-Irish are perfectly happy to marry whoever wants to have children with them.
That's right.
And they do. And then they call themselves American and confuse everybody. All right. So no, but the thing is, the posterity arguments, like, so indeed, does this mean, okay, wait, going back to the previous, like, do the United States Constitution apply to the people that were living in New Mexico before the entry into the United States? There's no posterity. I mean, there are Anglos that move over out there, like the mountain men and such like that, and they start having kids with people. But certainly, like we've talked, I think you looked up some of this, to the degree to which the actual Americans, whom we now call the tribes, are part of the United States, because they were conquered peoples, and in fact not citizens.
They were granted full citizenship
after the Civil War.
Yeah. But funny enough, some of them
more recently than the New Mexico became a state, and a lot of them live there.
But so not all of them wanted to be citizens.
Interesting.
They didn't want that. And I think most of them probably did, but definitely not all of them. There were some legal cases trying to stop it, but they didn't get voting rights until 1948, and then there were all kinds of state-by-state fights until the Voting Rights Act of 1965, right? Which was designed to get rid of, sneaky Jim Crow type laws that tried to prevent people from voting. But
so yeah. I think you've established, it's like what I actually have known, but now know better. I think the world began in 1965.
Well, yeah. Just because you were born then.
It did for me, since that's when I was born, right? But the thing is, so most of the mythology that we're arguing about begins in 1965. It's that version of what it means to be an American that everybody's arguing with. I had not actually said that out loud, but duh, right? It's everything has been invented out of the arguments that people had in the mid 60s of defining what it is to be an American. By which point you have all of these layers of previous colonies, previous interminglings of peoples, previous migrations into this country. And I mean, they're at every one of these junctures, there's big debates about like numbers of people that should be allowed to move into the communities and things like that. So yes, there are tensions in the 19th century because of these big migrations. The Germans seem to do a lot of the labor movements. Surprise, surprise.
Marx.
Well, and the reason that they came over, which we're going to get to, right? Hopefully. We got 50 minutes for this lecture. We'll keep going, right? Okay, so but the thing is, everybody at the internet guys. So we still have our conversation. Does it matter? Are we going to get into etymology? So yes and no, but what we're trying to do is stir the mud right now. So, find the crayfish hiding in the mud of people's assumptions about how easy it is to define these things. just in the region that we call the United States, the history is way more complicated than.
Well, I'll tell you what, I've lived all over the United States, and there's always a stark difference to me in just, you can just feel it, and when you cross over the Mississippi from west to east, it's very different. It's like you're in a different country, and it feels like America over here. It doesn't feel like America over there, even though everyone you meet to me is like, yes, they're Americans, and they feel like Americans, but the land itself and the culture is just so different. It's like it's like a separate America. It just feels different, and it looks different. And I can't explain it any better than that. I apologize.
So that's interesting because I've spent my life driving through St. Louis. I only lived there for 6 months as a baby, but
yeah,
because of where my family, it's like we sort of live on this road, right? The Route 66 from, but also from like the Ohio down the Mississippi and then over the Arkansas, the Canadian. It's like flyover country, right? But it's also, it's interesting for me. To me, St. Louis is just the midpoint of the journey, but you are right? There's a big divide between one side of the Mississippi and the other. If you look at maps at night, most of the population's on the eastern side. There's very little population, partly because it's desert. A lot because it's desert. There's not much water.
It is very empty. It is very empty, but
and then on the other coast.
Does it make sense? Can you feel history? Does that make sense?
Oh,
when
yes.
You're walking through an old town?
Yes.
Yes.
And
it feels very different when you're in Arizona or California or Oregon or Utah. Utah feels like Mars to me. It feels like the moon. It's that foreign. It's beautiful. The parks there are beautiful, but it feels very foreign. And if I come to any Eastern Seaboard town, even though they're all different, if you start from Florida, go all the way up to Maine, they're all very different, but they all feel very American. That's all I wanted to say about that.
Okay,
I can't describe it.
You are still holding an idea of America in your head when you say that, right?
Maybe.
Okay, but in that sense, so again, and that was beautifully said. And in fact, it captures exactly what we're trying to disentangle for people. When Vivek says anybody can be an American, that's not what he's talking about.
What do you think he's talking about?
I think he's talking about the way of the Constitution around, and anybody who lives according to this set of rules is American, which means you could have America and Mars, right? You could have
anybody can be an American citizen. I agree with him on that, but that's different than being culturally American.
Right, but don't do that. We were disentangling it.
Sorry.
But okay, but the thing is, no, and to be fair to you, right, and to the conversation, what we need to figure out is why it's like, and I'm not trying to disabuse you of that. You're right. There is such a thing as an American, but it's far more complicated than, let's see, how did I say it? I'm not saying there are people that are English. There are people that are Japanese. There are people, I don't know whether the people are Indian. One of the maps I threw out was a map of pre-British India, which is like lots of different places. I suspect they are probably, I've talked to Indians before about, it's like the South Indians are different from the Gujarati or different from the Bengali, or, it's like the regional differences are huge, right. And we allied them and pretend that they don't matter. Because it's all India, but that's our ignorance.
The British did, I should say.
Right. Yeah. Well, the British impose like they're good at this, right? They impose a single language and government over this region of very mixed populations.
Well, I don't think the single language was a terrible thing, but to pretend that they're all now one culture because they have a single language is just. That's never going to be. That's never going to be a reality. For anybody.
Okay. So when I was having fever dreams and listening to internet conversations the other night, I made a list when I woke up of all of the things that we could use to define a nation, and I'm going to read that list now, and it's 20 items. And you guys are going to have to take notes.
Okay.
Because I didn't make.
I don't have to because I have the hard copy.
No, not that one. That was David Hackett Fisher's. I think I haven't.
Okay.
I haven't actually written this one out for you. Okay, so consider if we're fighting over what a nation is, what does it mean? Now, the usual way that people say it is because this is the crude version. Europeans, right? Somehow Americans are really Americans because they're actually Europeans. What? We just established that we're not part of the British Empire. So are we or are we not? Oh no, Europeans because they are the people of Japheth, right? Here's the sons of Noah claim. This is a delightfully medieval, conceptualization of Asia, Africa, and Europe as each getting one of the sons, right? So good job, guys. You're medievalists.
Where did that come from?
It's a medieval reading of the three, right? Because in old world terms, there's three big regions, right? There's Europe, there's Asia, and there's Africa. It's simple.
Okay.
Crossing at Jerusalem, which is very convenient since it's the center of the world in scriptural terms, right? And so the sense that there is so that there's these, and I should have put a manuscript picture, and we have maps from the Middle Ages that do the same kind of thing, right? Here's the people of Japheth in Asia. Here's the people, in Europe. Here's the people of Ham in Africa, and here's the people of Shem in Asia, Persia, Middle East, right? Okay, so the claim constantly is like, well, okay, these are the people that belong together, and they shouldn't mix, right? But they're all sons of Noah, so whatever. And the primary claim being there that there's something essential to these subdivisions of humanity, and that the subdivisions of humanity should stay separate because it's in the Bible that they're separate. This then is typically, if you press people on it, it's like, well, it's because they're related by blood, right? There's a genealogical blood relationship. And these entities, they're imagined entities that have been relatively separate for all of human history.
Doubt.
Everybody knows about the slave trade from Africa. You know about the slave trade from Europe to North Africa throughout the Middle Ages?
Or just strategic marriage, right?
Well, so indeed, if you want to go with the people of Japheth as distinct, you're going to have to go with a lot of people that are living in the region that's marked by Shem, because those people have ancestors that were sold into slavery and became, I don't know, janissaries and wives of the Ottomans, so that they all look white. Oh, wait, and also all of those, Ptolemaic, Hellenistic kings and queens of Egypt. It's no, stop it.
It's complicated,
right?
yeah.
If you think even just doing this New World history is hard,
or it's not complicated. People intermate and intermarry
a lot. All right,
all the time.
Okay, so there's kinfolk, right? Which, okay, I have blonde hair, right? The sort of exactly what region you're going to decide is your white version. Okay, the blonde hair part.
Which white version?
Doesn't include Poland, apparently.
That's a terrible soundbite. Take it out.
Oh no. We're ridiculing the whole concept of this sort of purity of situation, right? Anyway, so I'd say it's not going to work if you're just going to go by these simplistic versions of populations, right? Because I'm here to tell you they've mixed way more than you realize for all of human history. And we are going to pause here, I think, at this map of Europe in 1444. Find your simple European, right? Okay, so one, the kinfolk and intermarriage one, indeed, we could spend ages and ages and ages trying to figure out whether that one's that they have a common history. Well, which one? I was born in St. Louis. I grew up in Albuquerque. Am I French or am I Spanish? Oh no, wait, I speak English. Wait a minute. Okay, territory. Well, we've already proven that that's nowhere near as stable, even for the United States, as people tend to think it is. Law. Interestingly, after the fall of the Roman Empire, some of the people lived under the Roman law, but the tribes lived under their own private law. And we've just established that, in fact, the Americans, the actual Americans, the indigenous Americans, live under their own tribal laws and under our federal law, but they may or may not live under Arizona law if they're on the res, right?
Yeah.
So, it's possible to be within a single territory and live under multiple laws. You can have laws. Okay, never mind.
Yes.
Culture, worship, Religion. Having a single ruler. That solves everything, right? Oh, no, wait, that doesn't work in an empire. Right?
Well, I don't know. You have an emperor.
Okay, but he could rule over people that are in different territories. Like we look at the map of the British Empire. India's nowhere near
Yeah.
England. It has one ruler. Mores, customs, rituals, social norms. Huh. We may have to come back to that. Language. A lot of people want to claim that, oh, it will be defined as a particular nation if we all speak the same language. But most people throughout history have been multilingual. What if I spoke Latin?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say Latin was a
Art,
unifying
architecture, music.
language.
I have more. It kept going, right? Maybe we need to back off a little bit and tell some history. So I have a different set of slides that we're going to work through. Here is Europe in the year 2000, and it tends to be the way most people argue about this entity Europe, right? We have this place called Germany, we have this place called Poland, we have this place called France, we have a place called Spain. They're nice. They're all about the same size too, which is very convenient. Although Texas can take all of them. No, they've sort of regularized around a particular thing that we call a nation. How old are these nations? Oh, let's start at the beginning.
From what perspective are you asking?
I don't know. Okay, look, I'm going to start all the way back at the beginning in year 1, right? And it's all pink because that's the Roman Empire. There's some gray blotches in the parts north of the Danube, but we don't really know who the people are there because we have no stories about them, so we can't even tell whose history we're talking about. And they're actually, interestingly, very. I'm going to have to look at this map closer because I can't see it on the screen. I will narrate it for you guys. Okay, these are all maps from a site called Euratlas, and it's extremely good because you can like go through at 100-year intervals to see where you are. Okay, so Rome is the pink part. We have these people called Suebi, Frisels, Verisci, Vandali, Scordesi, Dacia, Getae. The Getae are just north of the Black Sea, Sarmate, Navarre. Those are enduring nations, I'm sure, because of course this is in the year of our Lord's birth, 1, and therefore all of these nations should still exist because the Lord said the nations would survive till the end of time. I want to know where the Geti are. Getai. The Navarre, the Sarmate. Maybe we can find them if we keep going. We'll move. Okay, here we go to 100. Oh, look. Bohemi, Hermandari. The Suebi are still there. Oh, that's good. The Vandali are kind of there, but we don't really know where they are because Jordanes isn't very detailed. Trust me, it's harder than you think. Dacia, Getae, Navarre, Sarmatae, Frizii, Gothorte, Scuri, Veneti. Oh, maybe do they end up in Venice? That's confusing. Okay, here we go to 200. Did I change? I can't even. Oh, yeah, I changed. I can't even tell. Okay, that's because the Empire is still in control of all that. We'll go to 300. There's just a few more blodges. We've got Suebi and we maybe Frankie. They've showed up. They're on the across the Rhine. Saxones. Oh, we got hints of the Saxons, right? Langobardi up there in Germany. They're going to be the Lombards eventually down in Italy. The Veneti are still there, but they've moved east. Let's carry on. Pink's still there. Man, the Roman Empire stuck around for a long time, didn't it? The Alemanni. I think we call those Germans now, but they're not called Germans yet. The Hermanduri, the Bohemiani, the Cadi, the Hurli, Carpi, Huni, Illyricum. It gets its own color. Yay! That's Greece, sort of. In Persia, the green is creeping in from the west. Okay, we will now go from now. Hold everybody. Hold everybody. Watch what happens. Poof! It's gone. Right. Follow the empire.
Yeah.
Right.
What happened between 400 and 500?
Right. Indeed.
What
right.
in the world?
Okay. So
Yeah.
what the joke here is that this is in fact a map done in sovereign states mode. You can zoom in to display dependencies and subsets of all of these. But even if you're simply doing it on the government level, these don't have these early tribal groups. We don't know where they are. Trust me. There's a great book called by Walter Goffart called Narrators of Barbarian History, that talks about Gregory of Tours' history of the Franks, Bede's history of the Anglo-Saxons, Jordanes' history of the Goths, and Paul the Deacon's history of the Lombards. And among other things, he shows how difficult it is even to know where they were, right? It's like by the time Jordanes is writing the history of the Goths, he's already, in the next slide, in 600, the Goths were taken over the Iberian Peninsula and Toledo and such like that. They have no idea where they were before. It's vast inner reaches of Central Europe. Who knows?
They have
right?
They have no idea where the Goths came or how they got in Spain.
Nope. I mean, we know. So we have accounts of where they were once they move into the empire, and then the Roman and Greek, the Roman historians start writing about them. But even Jordanes, when he's writing, the reason that he's writing about the fall of the Roman Empire in the period that he is because he's trying to convince Justinian that there is no more Roman Empire in the West, and so he can go conquer it again. It's already political, right? Oh, the empire actually fell in 476. So your Majesty, or whatever they called him, what did they call the Roman emperor? That's a good political problem, right? You can send Belisarius in there to conquer in Italy, and look, they get a few bits of it. It turns back pink until bango, the 700s. It's gone. No, the pink is still there at the boot and in Sicily, but the Lombards have moved into northern Italy.
The Germans again.
They've taken over Italy. Wait, are the Italians German? Okay, so now Francia is our big pink bit, and this in 700, it doesn't include Aquitaine yet. Toledo is still yellow, because it's still, by 700, it's still the Visigoths. But there's some other regions like Cantia, Mercia, Northumbria, Reged, Picts, Eilec, Connacht, Lechen, Diffid, West Saxa. And there's some Danes up there in the north. I'm really sad there's no more Mercians.
Why?
Oh, because Tolkien thought he was one. Okay, so those kingdoms are up on what we call England now, right? But Cantia, West Saxony, Mercia, Northumbria, those are the different Anglo-Saxon kingdoms that Bede talks about, so we have some sense of who they are. Mercia doesn't convert to Christianity until after the others, so it's like the last pagan holdout of the Anglo-Saxons. We talk about the Anglo-Saxons in England, like the essential Englishness of English. What happened to the Mercians? Okay. I can do this all night, right? Now we're at 800, and look, pink is the Cat in the Hat pink has grown. It's all in Francia now. Now we have Europe. Yay! Because it's the year 800, and Charlemagne has been crowned emperor by the Rome. Wait, he took over Italy too, Francia. Oh, look, but the Visigoths are gone. It's Al-Andalus, the Islamic conquest, right? The green is crept in, so now we have the Caliphate, the Roman Empire. The pink bit's still there, and wait, Turkey? Okay, Turkey wants to join NATO. It looks like they belong because they're part of the Roman Empire.
Sure, and they're right on the North Atlantic, so that makes perfect sense.
Oh, and look, we have Magyars now, the Blue Balaj in the west, and Khazars around the Caspian Sea. The Black Sea. Which one's that? Which one's the north of the Caspian Sea? Wait, what's north of the Black Sea? Crimea, right? Woo, look, Pechenegs. That's what Ukraine must be. And the Avars. You know what? The next slide is going to show no Avars. You know why? Charlemagne wiped them out and stole all their treasure. I think, look, if the nations are real, and these are all nations, where are these peoples? Oh, look, West Francia and East Francia, they've split. What? Okay, look, back, big pink blodge, everybody watch, and abracadabra, two different peoples, French, West Francia and East Francia, and add Burgundy and Italy. Oh, and, the Iberian Peninsula's got more complicated. Aha! There's East Anglia, the Anglican kingdom. The yellow is growing on the island up north of the Channel. The English Channel, not yet, but the channel, right?
I think you meant to say the George Washington channel. Like,
What? He was never there. We can call it the Hawkins channel. No, it's
details,
English. Come on,
details.
who are the English? Are they even there yet? Jorvik. Those are the Danes who are living in York by now, right? So that's York. It's called Jorvik. You know why New York? Is that English or is it in fact Viking?
Danish.
Like the Jorvik, York. It's okay. It was Northumbria and the Vikings. Now we've made it to the year 1000. We're only halfway there. We started in 2000. Now we're halfway there, and we have the Empire of the Romans. It's the big orange bit.
I got to segue just a tiny bit here. So Jorvik led to York and New York, and so it's Danish, and now we want Greenland.
Yep. See? It's ours. And New Amsterdam. Come on. It was founded as New Amsterdam and then called after our James the Duke of York, who was Catholic. So New York is actually named for the Catholic monarch of who had okay, maybe saying they're all white is simpler. But we started off saying they're not all blonde, right? So that's complicated. Yeah. And these Romans, yeah, right. The Romans are still down there in the year 1000. They're still down there in Asia Minor, Turkey.
And the year 1000 is that not about the year, maybe it was 1200 that the Danes landed in Greenland? It was a long time ago.
When did they get to Greenland? They have colony there after this. They're after 1000, right? But what we have here, so one of the more irritating conversations I listened to was claiming that Europe is defined by the Holy Roman Empire. I don't see it yet. Oh, look, there's a label that says it is there, but that's actually the Empire of the Romans. You know when they started calling it the Holy Roman Empire?
Was it not with Charlemagne?
Nope. The next. It's actually only called that in the 12th century. Charlemagne simply calls his, and it's not even clear whether he calls it Roman. He calls it the Empire. He's emperor governing the Romans, right? Everybody fights over what these labels were. They're all trying to recreate that empire that they can remember when the pink bit was all around. But it's not. It doesn't include the same regions that the Roman Empire did, right? The Holy Roman Empire includes regions that were never Roman, and also some
like what?
Well, all parts east of the Rhine and north of the Danube, because it wasn't part of the empire, right? So there's no constant Romanness, although they're calling themselves Roman. These Franks, which are French, are the original Franks. Okay, I have to go into medieval politics by now. The problem is, like, here's the Hungarians. They were the Magyars. We've got Poland coming in. England. Oh, look, England is all yellow. And remarkably, England from this period will stay. Its borders are one of the most stable regions in the whole thing, except for England never considered itself part of Europe. Because look, go back to 800. Was England part of the Holy Roman Empire or the Roman Empire? No, it was never part of Charlemagne's empire. He was friends with Otto of Mercia. But England was always distinct from this continental story, except for they kept marrying into the noble families.
Well, and except they were part of the Roman Empire.
Yes, they were. Britain was a Roman province, but they were never part of the Germanic Empire. And France, of course, is separate. Okay, as far as Turkey is concerned, it's still part of the Roman Empire, although by now Rum has taken over. They're Turks, and there's a bunch of little Turkish peoples down here. Georgia, Erzurum. We're at 1100 now. There's Leon Castilla, Valencia, and Barcelona. Not Visigoths have started taking back the regions from the Islamic rulers. They've been marrying each other too, right? So that gets complicated. Here we go. 1200. Oh, look, the Holy Roman Empire is still there, nice big orange blotch, but the Papal States have taken over, and Hungary. Okay, 1300. Oh no.
Yeah, what happened in 1300? That was the other note I had.
Oh no, look at that. They've all broken up into little places.
Kaboom.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, to a certain extent, maps are a bit of a fiction anyway, because I mean, we do have some sense of where some of these territories begin and end, like the rivers, right? But look what happened to what we think of as the Holy Roman Empire. It's all of these little bitty states.
Hmm.
It's going to,
Because all of these smaller tribes and peoples got absorbed into larger groups.
it's really complicated. So what's interesting about like medieval German history, whatever counts as Germany, is very, very local because every single one of these localities has incredibly difficult and complicated history. It's so when I was reading Simon Winder's books last winter and through these about Germania and Danubia and Lotharingia and such, it's like it's so fascinating because from this period, they have some imagined. Remember, a nation is an idea. They have some imagined coherence throughout this period as under the emperor, but it's particularly in northern Italy, that region that had been taken over by the Lombards. Those regions fight the German emperors throughout the Middle Ages. They turn into the Renaissance, states, and they have like 50 years where they get to be Renaissance Florence. But to this day, there are different traditions of, for example, senses of civic liberty based on whether or not they were imperial cities or independent cities in the Middle Ages. I have a colleague in the business school here who's done a lot of work on that, and it's interesting.
Wow.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's no like common culture politically because of the disparate nature of all of these different polities. So if you're going to say, okay, we should all be under a monarch, oh yeah, tell the Swiss that.
Now, did they ever have one?
We'd have to
I don't
go
know.
look back. So they are actually part of the general claim of the emperors in the 12th and 13th centuries, but by 1300, all of these regions are asserting themselves as, are they nations? I mean, but we were talking. It's like we're talking about the Frisians and the Swabians and the look back, the Avars, which vanished because Charlemagne conquered them. The Bulgarians, the Magyars. It's like, at what point do one of these groups, tribes, peoples, political entities, families become a nation?
And Switzerland's an interesting case because it's got 3 separate language groups, 4 really.
So you can be Switzerland and have multiple languages, apparently. So you don't even have to have one language to be, wait, Switzerland.
Now, I don't know enough about the history of Switzerland, but that is unique, right? Because it's been like that for a couple of centuries.
All of these regions will have multiple languages. You think there's one language in France?
No, I know there's not one language in France.
Oh, really?
But
how many languages are there in France?
But they're related, aren't they? I mean, the native languages. I'm not talking about the ones the immigrants got from.
Oh, come on!
Africa,
You've been watching
Asia.
a Discovery Witches. She shames her when she's in you moderate.
New French.
You only speak
French.
New French. You don't speak the Languedoc, right?
Yeah.
Okay, no. It's what we have a conviction that all of these regions speak single languages, have a unified history, have a sort of stable entity, as, oh yes, it's always been so. You see how, as a medievalist, I find this positively laughable. We're not even to 1400 yet. Okay, here we go. 1400.
Even a lot of European countries were cobbled together in the 19th century.
That's it.
Two of the biggest ones were, and Spain was married together with the 2 kingdoms of Isabel and Ferdinand. But even recently, one of their provinces was trying to break off.
Well, okay, so
was it Catalonia?
Yeah, So here we were showing Aragon, Castile, Portugal, and Granada. Are the Portuguese a different nation from the Castilians? I mean, it's like. People constantly in the American political conversation constantly talk about nation as if it's an easy definition. Ourselves and our posterity. Who's that?
Well, they did have like I said, they did have a unified language and well, not a singular, but was mostly English origin.
No.
Did.
Don't do this. You're just begging the question. Okay, look, we're at 1500. The Holy Roman Empire stays fragmented in all these little states. Around 1500, it's a little bit after that, They all get blended together into the Habsburg Empire, but this map is not showing that. Um, uh, Spain is by 1600 under a powerful enough king that, oh look, England and Spain and France all kind of, like exist politically by this point. But the just like, okay, so you said, and this I thought was very well said, that you can feel the difference between the east and the west side of the Mississippi in the United States. Mm. You think people can tell the difference between one and the other side of the Rhine or the Pyrenees?
Absolutely. Yes.
They're different. They're different. Yeah. They have different histories. They have different political arrangements. They have different languages. I mean, the big debate that our friend E. Michael Jones got in with this guy who claimed to be a Lutheran was like, well, Europe was only unified under the Catholic Church. And he was saying, no, it was, the Lutheran was saying, no, it's only because the Catholics made it all bad that now we can be unified as unifiedness, the unifiedness of the blonde people, I guess. Please. No, it's we're still not yet to the modern. Look at this. Germany doesn't exist yet. It's 1700. There's no Germany. There's no Italy. There is a Spain, sort of, and it's got Portugal, and there is a France. France does a really good job, thanks to, for example, Louis XIV, over the course of the 17th century, creating himself as monarch over this very complicated and disparate region. That it's all shown as pink here, elides all sorts of regional differences. It's huge, right? Why are there no Cathars? Because back in the 1200, the northern French king killed off their nobility in Toulouse, right? But the people in the south of France, of course, remember that, because that's why you have, cool castles at Carcassonne. Okay, so by 1800, now France has had its revolution. It's taken over. It's had this moment. This is 1800. It's had its moment of Napoleon, and the Habsburg region is all gone light green, and Russia's over there. Look, the Ottoman Empire. We haven't been even paying attention to that, and there's still all these little bitty states in Saxony and Schwerin, and this label that says Holy Roman. Oh, look, in Great Britain, Ireland, Hanover is all one entity now, because we've had the Union of Crowns. Mm-hmm. And then France, okay, Napoleon, and then Habsburgs. And this is not going to show Napoleon. And here, I'm going to do a magic trick. Because we had the first magic trick with the fallen Roman Empire, and suddenly there's all these new entities, right? And then we had another magic trick when Charlemagne's empire there. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Wait, there's still no Germany. Oh, there it is. Wait, now we're at 1800. Sorry. Now it is. Oh, look, finally. Oh,
finally.
Except for it's bigger. Germany is bigger than it is now. That's very confusing. And Austria-Hungary, which apparently speaks a form of German, is still its own political entity, which might create some problems in a moment. And there is this thing called Italy. How did they do it?
By force?
Well, they didn't kill everybody. And that's not, no, in fact, that's not the way they did it. Napoleon tried. Okay, so going back to 1800, right? Napoleon marches through all of this region, reorganizes all of their states. I did not know this properly until last year. When first the French, because of their revolution from 1789, chopped all the nobility's heads off, redefined nation as the people who work, not the nobility and the aristocracy or anything like that. And when Napoleon comes to power, he takes on that sort of administrative regularization with a vengeance, as it were. And when he conquers the rest of Europe, but particularly these small states in Germany, as had been, he wipes out the nobility there too, or they become administrators or something like that. It's only about 10 years, but it's very interesting that because of the Napoleonic reforms in that decade or so, all of those little regions that had been also disparate and everything in the whole Roman Empire suddenly become aware of themselves as what, right? Mm-hmm. And to say, how did Italy and Germany come into being? And this is why it's like a nation is an idea. They invented themselves as nations. And then you end up with the way in which that list of things that I was making, we have this kind of argument in teaching history of European civilization constantly, because we need to know which bits shall we include? Shall we include Russia? Shall we include, the Byzantine Empire? Because it's part of Europe, isn't it? And shall we include Italy? Do we include Spain? We end up sort of agreeing that it's basically France, Germany, and England. It's like, wait a minute, why did we do that? Oh, probably because those are the people that ended up in North America. Wait, no, Spain did too. We should include Spain. But Mexico, no, wait. The problem for the 19th century was creating political entities out of these incredibly disparate regional customs and peoples and languages. The reason that everybody in Germany speaks Hochdeutsch is they imposed it in the schools. The reason everybody in Wales speaks English, repeat after me. They imposed it in the schools. The reason everybody in Italy speaks Florentine Dantean Italian, they imposed it in the schools. The reason everybody in France doesn't get to say le weekend unless the Académie Française says they can is they imposed it in the state schools. Nations, and I have a colleague who's done, to her, she's a MacArthur Fellow and brilliant and published, however many books she has, Tara Zara. Her entire career is over the way in which, particularly in Eastern Europe, she started with the Bohemian lands, right? They invented themselves as these allegedly coherent entities when they had never been before.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I don't know about Germany. I know from people who've lived in Italy that they still retain their individual dialects and they still speak them.
Yes.
So
there's this formal, like, received pronunciation. I mean, so we're gonna have to stop and not do David Hackett Fisher yet, but we'll get to that. When I was squelching you about saying we all speak the same language, we really don't. We do and we don't, right? We've been homogenized. American English has been homogenized a lot in our lifetime. But prior to that, it really wasn't. And there's still some region near where you are, right? In North Carolina that has completely different dialect. Nobody can understand them except for like the fishermen from some region in the British Isles.
And when my brother went into the Coast Guard in the 1980s, the first place he was stationed was Jackson, Mississippi. And he said, I had to take a translator with me to translate English into English to buy bait to go fishing.
There you go.
And he was not exaggerating. He could not understand them at all. And I can remember meeting people in the Deep South in different places 30, 40 years ago. Same thing. Couldn't understand a word they were saying. They could understand me because I spoke kind of a standard English that they heard on television.
Precisely.
Right? But I couldn't understand them.
Right.
Yeah. But yes, our language has become greatly homogenized, probably because of moving around quite a lot and because of television.
Because of television. We ended, it's the media effect of having a giant, I'm interested how kids these days, there's accents and intonations and things like that I'm hearing of the younger generation that, it's distinctive to me, right? So there's subsets of conversation even going on the internet, but the sense that all of us have, and I think 1965 is a pretty good date to go with, since as far as I'm concerned, that's the entirety of history. That sense of homogenizing is an entirely within my lifetime phenomenon.
Well, immigration law was also changed around 1965. Yep. They started making 100-person-a-year quotas from Northern and Western Europe and removing all quotas from, say, like Africa and South America. There was thousands they would let in from those countries every year. So they were trying to change the demographic in the country from mostly Northwestern European with some Southern and some Eastern European to all immigration was going to be coming from Africa and Asia and South America. Well, so they were trying to flip it. At the same time, they were homogenizing their language. So that's kind of interesting.
But they were also, this is why I say, on the one hand, I mean, we need, there's a difference between saying can you belong to the nation, the people, right? And I'm saying one nations. I've known those I've used those Euro Atlas maps a lot in teaching all of my history classes, like European Civ and medieval England and stuff like that, to show you how dynamic this process is. It's like those were 100-year intervals that we were looking at, and even just in 100 years, someone's long lifetime. The entire political the Roman Empire, no, it was astonishingly stable for several hundred years. But after that, Europe goes through a long period of lots and lots and lots of different peoples. The movements of peoples are very strong. The sense of we belong to who. It's like, are the people in York English? Some of them are. They were Northumbrian.
I don't know.
But then the Vikings showed up, and yeah, it's Jorvik, and then those Vikings. Some of those went to, yes, Iceland and Greenland. The sense of kinship was constantly being mediated by. I'm back to my big pink and green migration in the mid-19th century. Why were all those Germans coming over? We can answer that now from our previous maps.
They were invited.
No, they're fleeing all of the political upheaval in Germany in the mid-19th century.
Interesting. Yeah, they were at the same time. So that would explain why they got masses of them, right?
Well, they were recruited. Yeah. I mean, there's a great part of the Heimat series where it's set in the 19th century, and there were recruiters coming over from Brazil and more came to North America,
Texas,
in Texas, but they are willing to move,
yes,
because Germany is in such. I mean, there's no Germany yet, right? It's because of the upheavals thanks to Napoleon, because of the 1848 overturning of the government. One of my grandmother, my father's mother's family came, great grandfather came over from the Palatinate at that point. They're Protestants. So there's these big migrations of Germans into the American Midwest, and we don't think of ourselves as German, and yet my family is just as German as it is English or Scots-Irish. There's some Dutch in there too. We say, oh, well, they're white. And it's like, yeah, well, those Scots-Irish are marrying Cherokee too.
Yeah.
Elizabeth Warren is not necessarily nuts about that.
No, she is.
I mean, she may be nuts for other reasons, but she's not necessarily nuts about her family lineage, right? Because there was a lot of intermarriage. Okay, fine.
Yeah, but not hers.
Well, all right.
This is what
Fair
some
enough.
people don't understand. If American has even a drop of Indian blood in them, they will tell everybody, right?
Well,
because
maybe
it's something that they're proud of it. So when she was saying, "Oh, they were embarrassed by it," a lot of people didn't believe her. Like maybe, "Oh, my parents, they had a hard time," and yeah, that's a story she probably heard from somebody else. That's possibly true in a rural area in the 1920s.
Well, she's from Oklahoma, but
Oklahoma, yes, but that would not have been true in some place like Appalachia.
Not all of the tribes. Okay, so this is an interesting phenomenon. We talked about it a little bit last week at the EO about the Lumbee, that not all of the people who could claim tribal identity did. Some of them decided to blend. Yeah, and interestingly, in order to claim tribal identity, one of the things they had to do, and this is where I think Vox has made a very interesting point about racism, right? They needed to be racist in the sense of wanting to hold on to their own culture and customs.
Mm-hmm.
And, that creates interesting situations for right now for the museum world, because they have collections from a lot of those people. And is there anybody who can actually claim that that's their tribe? That not all of the people that could be descended from those peoples.
Right. How would you prove it? How would you prove it? It's from family lore.
It's from family lore. Right. So in that sense, Warren is not necessarily, she's not making an impossible claim.
No, but she is, because her own brothers are like, what?
Oh, well, okay, fair enough. That's fair enough. But anyway, it's why she could get away with it, because
she could get away with it because it's a common story that she probably took from somebody else.
Right. So the saying the nation. Okay, if we go back to the European story, just for a minute, I'll go back to the European map. That this is 1800. One of the things that I do in my scholarship, right, is I'm using a lot of stuff that was printed, particularly between 1800 and 1900, to 1800 and 1900. And you go back from 1800, there's no such thing as Germany. There's still Habsburg territory. It's family territory. It's mixed in with regions that become part of, oh, guess what? Germany. That one of the things that happens in the 19th century is places like Germany and France and England, which we think are so stable and real, make big edited collections of the monuments of their history. And the big German one is called the Monuments of German History, MGH, Monumenta Germania Historica. And what they were doing was inventing the nation. They were going and finding the histories of all of those places that I've been, flipping through the maps for and showing you, and claiming this is part of German history. They do it territorially, but there's a lot of like French documents in the Monumenta Germania Historica, because they claim all the Carolingian stuff too. So a lot of the Carolingian documents are in the MGH. The English are involved in publishing the Roll series of chronicles, which is their medieval chronicles. The French are doing, the Gallia. What's their collection? That one I don't know as well. They create it in scholarly terms as a part and parcel of creating it in political terms. So insofar, a nation is a historical invention of storytellers, because you can write the history of a nation and that makes it real. That's why who teaches what history in our schools matters so much.
Yeah,
because you are inventing it in the children's imagination as real. I grew up in New Mexico. You all know that now. It bugged me a lot that all of our American history started in, New England. I'm like, but we're over here. Are we American? Are we part of that story? Go back to, the American maps, right? It's like never mind Shem, Ham, and Japheth.
Yeah, they could have started with Spanish colonial history and moved up to 1912 and beyond.
But that confuses things, because we're not Spanish speaking, are we? The English defeated the Spanish in 1588. No, Spain became a nation. We became...
No, but quite a lot of Spanish place names there, and quite a lot of people in New Mexico who spoke only Spanish growing up. I know this for a fact. I mean, they're native New Mexicans.
Yes, and I hadn't appreciated, having grown up in that region, I hadn't appreciated how strange it was that the place names stayed so stable. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, it wasn't
there's
that long
Paseo de
ago.
Peralta,
That's why,
and I've been reading this history of New Mexico right now, and I'm saying I know all these names. It's like, yeah, they're streets.
This is part of what bothers me about
they're
changing
the names of the people, the governors, and things like that.
Yeah.
Yes, that's fair. That's fair.
That's what bothers me about changing the name of the Gulf of Mexico, because it's a historical name. So why change it?
I'm not going to let you win on that one, but anyway.
I mean, why change it? I mean, it's really no different than tearing down a monument and pretending that history didn't exist.
It's funny. I don't feel the same way about the Gulf of Mexico, Gulf of America question these regions. I'm back to the colonial map of 1762, like Virginia. I love the fact that the easternmost part of Kentucky was originally called Transylvania, because it was across the forest.
Yeah, this is a Transylvania County in western North Carolina that I drove
and there's
through
a university
last
or
summer.
something, right? Transylvania University in Kentucky. Yeah. So, when we what's interesting is, from my perspective, I am a historian, fair enough. From my perspective, nations are in things that are invented by storytelling. And ultimately, here's my big takeaway from all of this. Nation, who you think is your nation, is simply a question of in-group and out-group. And you can tell a story that makes your in-group the in-group and makes everybody else out-group, which is interesting, because history is all therefore about making in-groups and out-groups. It's like saying this border of story is ours and you don't belong in our story.
So currently I should have provided this map, but I'm just thinking about it now. And what is part of Quebec, which borders New England in the United States, it's all French speaking.
Yep.
but some of the towns still have English names because it was at one point part of New England
Right.
before the Revolution. So that's kind of interesting.
Well, we the thing is we can know and we know that nations are this complicated because we do have a field. This is my favorite. I'm going to okay, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, less useful, but we can get back to that. Blonde hair, because that does include most of Europe. So Europe complicated in 1444. Oh yes, Poland ball. This is how we know nations are real because they have Poland balls.
What is Poland ball? I don't know what that is.
Well, it started in Poland, which is why the prime ball is the black and the white and red one from Poland.
Okay.
And the Poland balls all speak in their vernacular, except for so like on this is showing the Europe Poland ball. Okay, the three at the top on this one, they're all cartoons, right? And they work because the balls are different sizes. It's very sophisticated. The big ones are like bigger political entities, territorial entities, but even the little ones, right? There's little ones for Croatia and Bosnia and Kosovo. Oh wait. Sometimes they get in fights. It's sad. Sealand cannot enter country. Okay, so they're different sizes depending on their power, force, whatever. And in this one, we have the EU talking to the United States and China at the top, and America. See, this is why we need Mercia, because it's America. No, wait. Anyway, America usually has like sunglasses on. Hey, EU, what's going on? EU, just looking, right?
China.
They all.
Yeah, I saw that at the
Russia.
top, yeah.
Okay, this one I've had for a while. Russia strong. Remove homos. Give potato plaques. Okay, who's that? Poland cannot into space. Germany strong. Ukraine is of divided. Crimea is of Russia, not of Ukrainian. This is before the 2022 war, right? I did get some from, when Ukraine is being bullied and torn apart and stuff like that. Screwing you too. Kurdistan cannot into independence. Helpings me. I think that's Syria. Turkey cannot into Europe. Sad. Greece. Hey, Greece, what's of wrong with my name? Give monies, plucks. Mamma mia, Italia is of in crisis. Oh, it looks like Catalonia is saying give independence. Give independence. That's Basques, right? Allez, la France. Belgium is of divided. Always of neutral. That's Switzerland. Croatia can into EU. Bosnia is of divided. They have character, right? Now, the fascinating thing is we do feel like the nations are real. And this is like heavy proof to you that they're not. I don't think they actually are, but the problem is like what reality do they have? Because each of these little balls, it's like you can blend them, and then it's like if you want to blend Wales and Scotland into the UK. Some people England vanished, right? What happened to England? It got absorbed into the UK. There's no Englishness.
It bothers me that English people in Britain they are pretending English people don't exist. This bothers me because it is supposed to be England, Scotland, Northern Ireland, and Wales. They are separate nations. Britain is, how would you describe it? It's a government that cobbles together all of these kingdoms together under one crown, right? It's the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland.
Well, that's what this, the white Europe, white nationalism argument is like. This will all fit. You're just imperialist, just like everybody else.
Who's the imperialist?
So every time you're trying to claim that groups that are presently politically disparate actually all belong together, it's like that's what people are saying. Trump is actually just being imperialist. He wants to take over Canada and Panama and Greenland, and it's like, well, we can prove that they actually belong because he
has a point with Panama. I mean, the Panama Canal don't exist because we made it. There wasn't anything there but a swamp that killed lots of people with malaria.
Panama is of U.S. Poland balls.
Yeah,
the Poland balls. So look them up. They're actually very insightful on. I did realize with Poland ball has a better image of Europe than Europe does, because the EU has terrible graphics to try to explain how it is the EU. But Poland Ball came up with this really pretty stained glass window to represent Europe.
Oh,
But Europe actually has a lot of trouble defining itself because they don't know which, is of EU, is not, what belongs, what counts as Europe. I mean, if Americans could figure out what Europe is, like as they're trying to do in this picture, that wouldn't be news to the Europeans. Is Switzerland of Europe? Wait, if it's not of the EU, I also have collected a lot of these as you're trying to show how the EU arose out of the European coal and steel community, which was then the this and then the common market and then the that and then the that and then the Constitution in 2008.
yeah. It's the Franco-Prussian Empire all over again.
Something like that, yes, right?
Yeah,
So
is it?
the problem with nations, and I hope this felt pretty lightning fast. I hope some of it was okay. Is that they are in fact imagined communities, as Benedict Anderson famously put it. The problem is the imagining is always negotiated by the people who are alive at the time.
So when you say imagined, it's like you're saying these people don't actually exist and they just exist on paper.
No. Your sense of belonging. Why do you feel like you belong?
Imagined?
Yes, it's imagined in the strong sense of it's a product of our convictions. People across a river will be convinced that they will fight each other to the death. That's called World War I, World War II, all of Lotharingian history. The sense of we are the same, therefore we are part of the same. I mean, all of the things that people use to identify themselves: kinship, history, language, territory, law, culture, ruler.
They're essentially family groups that get expanded.
No, they're not. No.
I think they are.
I think we have invented a nation. We have invented a nation based on no, and okay, we're gonna have to come back to this because you were trying to make a sense the distinction between the legal citizenship and the people belonging.
Yeah.
Hold that thought.
Okay.
So I hope Indy with Poland Ball will leave people in a better mood than we started. Let me see what happened to our commenting audience.
I'm in a fine mood.
Oh, that's good. Robert, the mind mystique appear. A rogue wave. I'm late. Good. But I've learned that the preamble of the Constitution does not scan. Well, certainly I can't sing it. Sanjuro says, cool, castles of Carcassonne. Yes. So, I mean, I believe there are such things as nations. I believe that people really do have a feeling of belonging. But I do know also that people can intermarry in ways that confound other people's descriptions of what should make nations. And for example, in Croatia and Kosovo, there are problems even when you've been intermarrying and living in the same territory for centuries.
That's largely a religious problem, though, isn't it? In that particular area. ...
Okay, so no, this is good. I think we've at least unpacked the problem a little bit. And saying you can feel absolutely convicted that, but that can you be of the same nation with a Protestant?
Can I be of the same nation with a Protestant? I immediately want to say yes, but I think the answer is probably they should become Catholic right now. Come on home. It's okay.
I knew we weren't going to make it to Albion Seed. Guys, everybody, if you want to keep up for next week's topic, read this book. It's not short.
I'll tell you, I read it. It's really good.
Yes.
It's fascinating.
I can give you the short version here is: we are and have never been a single nation. As Colin Woodard, drawing on Albion Seed, said in his American Nations, we are multiple. And what David Hackett Fisher does is show in delightful, and we will go into delightful detail, how in fact remember Mercia, right? They went to the Mercians. Well, they kind of got left out too. Wessex goes to Virginia. East Anglia goes to New England. the Scots-Irish borders go to Great Appalachia, and the Midlanders go to Pennsylvania. And I don't know what happened to the Mercians.
They got absorbed.
They got absorbed.
Didn't they?
Make Mercia great again.
Do it for Tolkien.
Do it for Tolkien. Do it for Tolkien. And that's the best we can do right now to say, to be continued. All right. Yes, thanks. Everybody, thanks for being a good sport. The medievalist in me was just like, guys, really.
You got fired up.
I got fired up. I know what a nation is and you don't. No, wait. Okay. Those are all the comments I see right now. Let me see if there's any in Telegram. I do read these as you guys are going along. Don't it's just like we should figure out some way to beat me when I'm going off on. Okay. To be continued. Thanks for joining us. Oh, yes, and you can find all of the videos are on YouTube and unauthorized. The podcast is on Spotify and Amazon and some others. We're definitely on Spotify and Heart. And should I tell them what they are? Because apparently people have been having trouble finding them.
Put it in the
Spotify, they're always in the comments. There's a standard thing that I copy paste into every video.
I know. It's there.
Read the description. Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeart, Pandora, and Apple. Right. We are able to found how this one though, you probably do want to see the maps, at least squint at them on your phones.
Yeah. The Poland Bowl one is fun. I just didn't know what it was.
Poland Ball. If you
like
define the nation, see if there's a Poland Ball for you. There's one for Texas. Night.